Have you ever heard of an HOA? It stands for Homeowners Association, and in many neighborhoods, they're the groups that make the rules. Imagine a club, but instead of choosing to join, you automatically become a member when you buy a house in certain areas. HOAs are supposed to help keep neighborhoods looking nice and make sure everyone follows certain standards. They might decide things like what color you can paint your house, how high your grass can grow, or even what kind of decorations you can put up during the holidays. Sounds okay, right? Well, sometimes HOAs can be a real pain. It all comes down to power. These associations have the power to enforce their rules, and if you break them, they can give you warnings, fines, or even take legal action. This can lead to some pretty frustrating situations. Think about it. Maybe you love bright purple, but the HOA only allows houses to be painted in shades of beige. Or maybe you work long hours and don't have time to mow your lawn every week, but the HOA sends you a nasty letter saying your grass is too long. It can feel like you're living under a microscope, with someone constantly watching and judging your every move. The biggest problem is that HOAs can sometimes seem unfair or unreasonable. What one person thinks is a minor issue, another person might see as a huge violation. And sometimes, it feels like the HOA is picking on you specifically. Maybe they're ignoring similar violations by your neighbors, or maybe they're just being overly strict about something that doesn't really matter. This is where the frustration comes in. You're paying your mortgage, you're taking care of your property, and you just want to enjoy your home. But instead, you're constantly dealing with the HOA and their rules. It can feel like they're more interested in controlling your life than in actually improving the neighborhood. That's exactly what happened to me. I just wanted a pool in my backyard, a simple little pool to cool off during the hot summer days. But the HOA had other plans. They made my life miserable, nitpicking every detail and finding any excuse to deny my request. Little did they know, they were about to unleash a water park upon the neighborhood. Oh, the dream! It wasn't just about escaping the summer heat, it was about creating a backyard oasis, a place of joy and laughter, a hub for neighborhood fun. I envisioned crystal clear water shimmering under the sun, kids splashing and giggling, and adults lounging with cool drinks in hand. It was more than just a pool, it was a vision of community and connection. I imagined summer barbecues with friends and family, the aroma of grilled burgers filling the air. Kids would be cannonballing into the pool, their shrieks of delight echoing through the neighborhood. In the evenings, we'd string up fairy lights and float in the water, sharing stories and watching the stars. It was a picture-perfect scene, a slice of paradise right in my own backyard. The dream started small, with just a simple above-ground pool. I pictured a sunny afternoon, relaxing on a colorful inflatable, reading a good book, and occasionally dipping my toes in the cool water. It was a simple pleasure, a way to unwind after a long day and escape the stresses of life. But as I started researching pools and browsing backyard design ideas, the dream grew bigger and bolder. I envisioned a sparkling in-ground pool with a diving board and a slide. I imagined landscaping with tropical plants and colorful flowers, creating a lush and inviting atmosphere. I even dreamed of adding a small waterfall and a hot tub for those cool autumn evenings. The pool wasn't just about me, it was about creating a space for my family and friends to enjoy. I wanted a place where my kids could make memories that would last a lifetime, where we could host parties and celebrations, and where everyone felt welcome and comfortable. I spent hours sketching out designs, researching pool sizes and shapes, and dreaming about all the fun we would have. I could almost feel the warm sun on my skin, hear the laughter of my friends, and smell the chlorine in the air. It was a dream worth fighting for, a dream that I was determined to make a reality. Even if the HOA seemed like an insurmountable obstacle, I held on to that vision, knowing that someday, somehow, my backyard oasis would become a reality. The thought of that cool, refreshing water kept me going, even when things got tough. It was my happy place, a mental escape from the everyday grind. And it was all about to be threatened by a very grumpy HOA. The HOA's response to my pool dream was like a bucket of ice water thrown on a sunny day. It wasn't a simple no, it was a series of nitpicky objections, each one more ridiculous than the last. They weren't just denying my request, they were dissecting it, scrutinizing every detail with an almost malicious glee. First, there was the setback rule. Apparently, my pool was too close to the property line, even though it met the city's requirements. They claimed it violated some obscure HOA regulation that hadn't been enforced in years. When I pointed out that several other neighbors had pools closer to their property lines, they brushed it off, saying those were grandfathered in. Then came the noise pollution argument. They claimed a pool would create excessive noise, disturbing the peace and tranquility of the neighborhood. Never mind that kids already played loudly in their yards, dogs barked incessantly, and lawnmowers roared every weekend. Apparently, splashing was the ultimate sonic offense. But the real kicker was the aesthetic concerns. They argued that a pool would detract from the overall aesthetic appeal of the neighborhood. They sent me a letter filled with highfalutin language about preserving the harmonious architectural landscape and maintaining the visual integrity of the community. It was like they were writing a novel about my pool, and I was the villain ruining their perfect world. I felt like they were deliberately trying to make things difficult. They requested endless revisions to my plans, demanded multiple site visits, and bombarded me with emails and phone calls. It was exhausting and frustrating. Every time I thought I had addressed their concerns, they would come up with something new. The worst part was the feeling of being singled out. It seemed like they were going out of their way to harass me. I started to feel like they were watching my every move, waiting for me to make a mistake. It was incredibly stressful and made me feel like I was living in a prison. I knew they were just trying to wear me down, hoping I would give up and abandon my dream. But I refused to let them win. I was determined to fight back, to challenge their ridiculous rules, and to build my pool, even if it meant turning my backyard into a water park to prove a point. The harassment only fueled my determination. They had picked the wrong person to mess with. I was about to show them what aesthetic appeal really meant. The water park idea didn't just pop into my head fully formed. It was more like a slow simmer of frustration, eventually boiling over into a glorious, ridiculous plan. The turning point came during one particularly infuriating HOA meeting. They were droning on about property values and community standards, and I was just about ready to explode. That's when I had my aha moment. If they were so concerned about aesthetics and noise, I thought, I'd give them something to really complain about. If they didn't want a simple pool, I'd build something so over the top, so undeniably fun, that they couldn't possibly object. It was pure spite, I admit, but it was also a stroke of genius, if I do say so myself. The initial thought was just a slightly bigger pool with a really awesome slide. But then I started thinking bigger. What if I added a lazy river? And a splash pad for the little kids? And maybe even a climbing wall that led to a diving platform? The possibilities were endless. I started sketching out ideas, and the more I drew, the more excited I became. It wasn't just about getting back at the HOA anymore, it was about creating something truly amazing, a place where everyone in the neighborhood could have fun. I wanted to build a place where kids could be kids, where adults could relax and unwind, and where the HOA's stuffy rules didn't matter. I pictured families laughing and playing together, the sounds of joy filling the air. I imagined the smiles on the faces of my neighbors, the sense of community that would be created. It was a far cry from the quiet, pristine neighborhood the HOA seemed to want, but it was exactly what I wanted, a vibrant, lively, and fun-filled space. The more I thought about it, the more determined I became. It was a crazy idea, I knew, but it was also the perfect solution. It would be a statement, a rebellion against the HOA's tyranny, and a gift to my community. Plus, who could say no to a water park? It was the ultimate act of defiance, disguised as a really, really fun backyard project. And the best part? It was all perfectly legal, or at least, I hoped it was. I hadn't exactly checked with the city about zoning regulations for backyard water parks. But hey, What's life without a little risk? The HOA had poked the bear, and now the bear was building a water park. Turning a backyard into a water park is no small feat. It was a massive undertaking, a chaotic blend of planning, construction, and sheer determination. I quickly realized I was in way over my head, but I was too stubborn to turn back. First came the design. My initial sketches were ambitious, but I needed professional help. I found a landscape architect who, after a long period of staring and then a hearty laugh, agreed to help me bring my vision to life. We spent weeks poring over blueprints, tweaking designs, and ensuring everything was up to code, or at least, as close to code as a backyard water park could be. Then came the construction. This was where things got really interesting. I hired a crew of contractors who looked at me like I was completely insane, but they were also intrigued by the project. The first step was excavating the land, which involved heavy machinery and a whole lot of dirt. My backyard looked like a bomb had gone off. Building the pool and lazy river was a challenge. We had to dig deep trenches, install plumbing and electrical systems, and pour tons of concrete. There were days when I thought we would never finish. The splash pad was easier, but it still required careful planning and precise execution. One of the biggest challenges was the water slide. I wanted a really big, twisty slide that would be the centerpiece of the water park. But finding one that was both safe and affordable proved difficult. Eventually, I found a company that specialized in custom water slides, and they built me a slide that was even more amazing than I had imagined. Throughout the entire process, there were countless setbacks and unexpected problems. We had to deal with bad weather, delayed deliveries, and equipment malfunctions. But through it all, we kept pushing forward, fueled by my determination and the growing excitement of the neighborhood kids, who would peer through the fence with wide-eyed wonder. Despite the challenges, there were also plenty of fun moments. I loved working with the contractors, brainstorming ideas, and watching the water park slowly take shape. It was incredibly rewarding to see my vision come to life, to know that I was creating something special for my community. Plus, there was the satisfaction of knowing that the HOA was probably losing their minds. The sounds of construction were probably driving them crazy, and they had no idea what was coming. It was a sweet, sweet revenge. The whole thing was a balancing act between a logistical nightmare and the most fun I'd ever had. The construction of the water park was quite the spectacle, and it didn't take long for the neighbors to take notice. At first, there was just curiosity. People would slow down as they drove by, craning their necks to get a better look at the giant hole in my backyard. Then, the questions started. "What are you building?" they'd ask, trying to sound casual but clearly dying to know. I'd give vague answers, like, "Oh, just a little something for the kids," or, "It's a surprise." This only fueled their curiosity and sparked a flurry of rumors. Some people thought I was building a bomb shelter. Others speculated that I was installing a giant swimming pool, which, of course, wasn't entirely wrong. One particularly imaginative neighbor even suggested that I was building a secret underground lair. The kids were the most excited. They'd press their faces against the fence, watching the construction workers with wide-eyed wonder. They'd ask me every day if the water park was finished yet, and I'd tell them it was getting closer. Their anticipation was contagious, and it made all the hard work worthwhile. The adults were a bit more skeptical. Some were concerned about the noise and the potential for increased traffic. Others worried that the water park would attract unwanted attention to the neighborhood. And, of course, there were those who were just plain jealous. One neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, was particularly vocal in her disapproval. She was a staunch supporter of the HOA and believed that my water park was a blatant violation of community standards. She even threatened to report me to the authorities. But for every Mrs. Higgins, there were 10 other neighbors who were genuinely excited about the project. They saw it as a fun and unique addition to the neighborhood, a place where their kids could play and they could relax. They offered to help with the construction, bringing me drinks and snacks, and cheering me on. As the water park neared completion, the rumors reached a fever pitch. Everyone was buzzing with anticipation, wondering what the finished product would look like. I kept my plans a secret, wanting to surprise them all with the grand reveal. I knew that the water park would be a game changer, a symbol of defiance against the HOA and a testament to the power of community. And I couldn't wait to see their faces when I finally opened the gates. The anticipation was palpable, and I knew that the grand opening would be an event to remember. The day of the grand opening was like a dream. The sun was shining, the sky was blue, and the air was filled with anticipation. I had sent out invitations to all my neighbors, promising a day of fun and surprises. I set up a barbecue, stocked up on drinks, and hired a DJ to play music. Everything was perfect. As the first guests arrived, I could see the shock and amazement on their faces. Their jaws dropped as they took in the sight of the water park. The kids were screaming with excitement, running towards the pool and the water slide. The adults were speechless, shaking their heads in disbelief. Mrs. Higgins was the first to approach me. I braced myself for a lecture, but instead, she just stared at the water park with a look of utter astonishment. I don't know what to say," she stammered. It's incredible." I smiled. "Welcome to Higgins H2O heaven," I said, gesturing to the water park. "Come on in, the water's fine." And with that, the party began. Kids were splashing in the pool, sliding down the water slide, and playing in the splash pad. Adults were lounging in the lazy river, sipping drinks, and chatting with each other. The air was filled with laughter and the sounds of joy. Even Mrs. Higgins couldn't resist the temptation. She cautiously dipped her toes in the water, then slowly waded in. Soon, she was laughing and splashing along with everyone else. It was a sight I never thought I'd see. The water park was a huge success. Everyone loved it. It was the perfect way to beat the summer heat, to connect with neighbors, and to create lasting memories. It was everything I had dreamed of, and more. But the best part was seeing the community come together. For the first time, the neighborhood felt like a real community. People were talking to each other, laughing with each other, and helping each other. The water park had brought us all closer together. As the sun began to set, I looked around at the scene before me. Kids were still playing in the water, adults were still chatting, and the music was still playing. It was a perfect day, a perfect ending to a long and challenging journey. And I knew that the water park would be a source of joy and community for years to come. The HOA might have tried to stop me, but I had created something truly special, something that they could never take away. It was a victory for fun, for community, and for the power of dreams. The HOA's reaction to the water park was complicated. Initially, there was stunned silence. I imagine they were huddled in a dimly lit room, poring over the HOA guidelines, desperately searching for a loophole, or regulation, anything they could use to shut me down. A week after the grand opening, I received a certified letter. It was from the HOA, of course, and it was filled with the usual legal jargon. They cited several violations, including excessive noise, unapproved construction, and detrimental impact on property values. They demanded that I dismantle the water park immediately or face legal action. But here's where things got interesting. The letter also included a petition signed by nearly every homeowner in the neighborhood, except, predictably, Mrs. Higgins. The petition expressed their overwhelming support for the water park and urged the HOA to reconsider their decision. The neighbors had rallied to my defense. They argued that the water park had brought the community together, increased property values, who wouldn't want to live next to a water park, and provided a safe and fun place for kids to play. They even offered to volunteer their time to help maintain the water park and ensure it complied with all safety regulations. The HOA was in a bind. On one hand, they had to uphold their rules and regulations. On the other hand, they couldn't ignore the overwhelming support for the water park from the community. They were facing a full-blown rebellion. After weeks of deliberation, the HOA finally reached a decision. They agreed to allow the water park to remain, but with certain conditions. I had to install a sound barrier to reduce noise levels, obtain additional insurance coverage, and limit the hours of operation. I was happy to comply. These were reasonable requests, and I was grateful that the HOA had listened to the community. I installed the sound barrier, purchased the extra insurance, and agreed to close the water park at a reasonable hour. In the end, the HOA's response was a victory for everyone. The HOA got to uphold its rules and regulations, the community got to keep its water park, and I got to prove that even the most stubborn HOA can be swayed by the power of community. It wasn't a complete surrender on their part, but it was a significant concession. And honestly, the sound barrier helped a lot with the noise complaints. It was a win-win, even if it took a water park to get there. The water park did more than just provide a place to cool off on a hot day, it transformed the entire atmosphere of the neighborhood. Before, people mostly kept to themselves, exchanging polite nods but rarely engaging in meaningful conversations. Now, there was a constant buzz of activity, a sense of shared joy that permeated the air. Kids who had never played together were now best friends, spending hours splashing and laughing in the water. Parents who had never met were now chatting by the pool, sharing stories and advice. The water park had broken down barriers and created a sense of camaraderie that had been missing before. We started organizing regular water park events, like movie nights by the pool, potluck barbecues, and even a neighborhood Olympics. These events brought everyone together, fostering a sense of community and belonging. It was like we had created our own little oasis of happiness, a place where everyone felt welcome and connected. Even Mrs. Higgins underwent a transformation. She became a regular at the water park, often bringing homemade cookies and helping to supervise the kids. She even started organizing water aerobics classes for the adults. It was amazing to see her embrace the water park and become such an integral part of the community. The water park also created a sense of pride in the neighborhood. People started taking better care of their yards, organizing neighborhood cleanups, and generally working together to improve the community. It was like the water park had inspired everyone to be better neighbors. The sound of laughter and splashing became the soundtrack of our neighborhood. It was a constant reminder of the joy and community that the water park had brought. Even on days when the water park was closed, people would still gather by the fence, reminiscing about their favorite memories and looking forward to the next time they could splash and play together. The water park had become more than just a backyard amenity, it had become the heart and soul of our community. It was a place where friendships were forged, memories were made, and the spirit of togetherness thrived. It was a testament to the power of dreams, the importance of community, and the transformative effect of a little bit of water and a whole lot of fun. It showed that sometimes, the best things in life come from the most unexpected places, even from a backyard water park built out of spite against an HOA. This whole experience taught me a lot, not just about building water parks, but about HOAs, community, and the importance of creative problem solving. First, I learned that HOAs, while sometimes necessary, can be incredibly frustrating. They often operate with a rigid set of rules and regulations that don't always make sense. It's important to understand your rights as a homeowner and to know when to push back against unreasonable demands. However, it's also important to remember that HOAs are often made up of volunteers who are trying to do what they think is best for the community. Communication and compromise are key. Second, I learned about the power of community. When the HOA tried to shut down the water park, it was the support of my neighbors that made all the difference. They rallied to my defense, signed petitions, and spoke out at HOA meetings. Their collective voice was much louder than mine alone, and it ultimately convinced the HOA to reconsider their decision. I realized that a strong community can overcome almost any obstacle. Third, I learned that there's always a creative solution to every problem. When the HOA denied my request for a pool, I could have just given up. But instead, I decided to think outside the box and come up with a solution that was both fun and defiant. Building a water park was a crazy idea, but it worked. It not only fulfilled my dream of having a place to swim but also brought the community together in a way I never could have imagined. I also learned the importance of not taking no for an answer. The HOA initially told me no, but I didn't let that stop me. I kept pushing, kept negotiating, and kept fighting for what I believed in. And in the end, I won. Finally, I learned that sometimes, the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. I never would have imagined that a backyard water park built out of spite would become the heart and soul of my community. But it did. It brought joy, laughter, and connection to a neighborhood that had been lacking those things for too long. So, if you're facing a challenge, whether it's an HOA dispute, a personal setback, or anything in between, remember these lessons. Stand up for your rights, embrace your community, and never give up on your dreams. And who knows, maybe you'll even build a water park along the way. Just make sure to check the zoning regulations first. I still haven't done that. The water park is here to stay, and we have big plans for its future. We're not content with just splashing around, we want to make it even better, even more fun, and even more of a community hub. One of our biggest plans is to add a retractable roof. This would allow us to use the water park year-round, regardless of the weather. Imagine swimming under the stars in the winter or hosting a luau in the middle of January. It would be a game changer. We're also planning to add new features, like a climbing wall over the pool, a bigger and better splash pad for the little kids, and maybe even a wave pool. The possibilities are endless. We're constantly brainstorming new ideas and looking for ways to make the water park even more exciting. But it's not just about the physical features. We also want to expand our community events. We're thinking of hosting more movie nights, potlucks, and barbecues. We're also planning to start a water park swim team and offer swimming lessons for kids and adults. One of our most ambitious ideas is to turn the water park into a fundraising venue for local charities. We could host events to raise money for schools, hospitals, and other worthy causes. It would be a way to give back to the community and use the water park for something more than just fun and games. We're also working on making the water park more sustainable. We're planning to install solar panels to power the water pumps and heating systems. We're also looking into ways to conserve water, like using rainwater harvesting systems. The community is heavily involved in the planning process. We hold regular meetings to discuss new ideas and gather feedback. Everyone has a voice, and everyone's opinion matters. It's a truly collaborative effort. Of course, we'll have to get the HOA's approval for all of these changes. But after the water park saga, I think they've learned that it's best to work with the community, not against it. And who knows, maybe Mrs. Higgins will even volunteer to help with the construction. The future of the water park is bright. It's a place where dreams come true, friendships are forged, and communities thrive. It's a testament to the power of creativity, the importance of community, and the transformative effect of a little bit of water and a whole lot of fun. And we can't wait to see what the future holds. We're just getting started. My journey from a denied pool request to a thriving community water park wasn't just about swimming and water slides, it was about finding joy and building connections in the face of obstacles. It's a story about how a little bit of creativity, a whole lot of determination, and the unwavering support of a community can turn a frustrating situation into something truly special. Life will inevitably throw curveballs your way. You'll face challenges, setbacks, and moments when you feel like giving up. But it's how you respond to those challenges that defines you. You can choose to be defeated by them, or you can choose to find a way to overcome them. Sometimes, the best solutions are the most unexpected ones. When the HOA told me I couldn't have a pool, I could have just accepted it. But instead, I decided to think outside the box and come up with a solution that was even better than a pool. I built a water park. And it wasn't just about getting back at the HOA. It was about creating something positive, something that would bring joy to my community. It was about building connections, fostering friendships, and creating a place where everyone felt welcome and connected. The water park became a symbol of resilience, creativity, and community spirit. It showed that even the most restrictive rules and regulations can't stifle the human desire for fun, connection, and belonging. So, the next time you're facing an obstacle, remember my story. Remember the water park. Remember that there's always a way to find joy and build community, even in the most challenging circumstances. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something. Don't let anyone stifle your creativity. Don't let anyone dim your spirit. Embrace the challenges, embrace your community, and embrace the power of creative solutions. And who knows, maybe you'll even build a water park along the way. Or maybe you'll just find a new way to connect with your neighbors, to spread joy, and to make the world a little bit brighter. Because in the end, that's what it's all about. It's about finding joy, building community, and making the world a better place, one splash at a time. And always, always check those zoning regulations. I really should get around to that.